Hello, my name is Derek Burke, and I'm joined by my colleague Mark Carlson. We are system architects on the Enterprise Deployment team in the GeoExperience Center. Today we're going to review the different options available to deploy ArcGIS Enterprise, and we'll also provide tips that we use every day in our role of managing hundreds of GIS environments for Esri's Global Business Development Division. But before we jump into ArcGIS Enterprise deployment options, let's take a few minutes to review the ArcGIS platform architecture and associated best practices. There's a great white paper called Architecting the ArcGIS Platform Best Practices. It contains implementation guidelines and best practices that are conceptual in nature and help guide you through designing your GIS to meet your organizational needs. Before deploying ArcGIS Enterprise, it's important to have a thorough understanding of these needs and what capabilities are necessary to achieve those needs and outcomes. From there, you can develop a plan and a roadmap for your implementation. Here we have a conceptual representation of the ArcGIS platform and the conceptual boundaries that separate the functions of the platform. The diagram on the right illustrates platform capabilities combined with best practices and patterns of business use. We'll be focusing on the infrastructure section, both the components and best practices. These components include hardware, software, services, and data repositories that are the core of the ArcGIS platform. There's numerous best practices, including load balancing, high availability, and workload separation, just to name a few. But let's dive deeper with some best practice examples as they relate to infrastructure and ArcGIS Enterprise deployment considerations. The first best practice we'll take a look at is automation. Automation streamlines administrative workflows and repetitive tasks, improving efficiency, consistency, and productivity, and reducing risk. In our practice at Esri, managing hundreds of servers, we strive to automate everything. We'll be demoing several options for automating ArcGIS Enterprise deployments. The next two best practices are important concepts to take note of. While simpler architectures work well for many deployments, the next topics are advanced configurations that involve using multiple machine deployments depending on your business needs. High availability is one of these best practices, which helps you achieve your SLA within your organization. It's a series of strategies for minimizing downtime while maximizing performance and reliability. Before designing your implementation solution, it's important to determine how much downtime is acceptable. To increase uptime, one strategy is to reduce single points of failure. For an ArcGIS Enterprise deployment, this could be deploying redundant systems and then migrating traffic to those environments. Please see the URL below for more information if it's right for you. Lastly, workload separation is the approach of maximizing system performance and reducing risk by optimizing resources such as servers for specific tasks. In our ArcGIS Enterprise deployment context, we'll deploy servers that focus on these specific tasks such as analysis or real-time image processing. Separating these specialized workloads allows you to optimize your infrastructure for those specific tasks. From an ArcGIS Enterprise perspective, we'll be discussing deployment options for ArcGIS Enterprise-based deployment, which consists of several components including the portal for ArcGIS, the hosting server, ArcGIS Data Store, and web adapters. Additionally, we'll review deployment of optional components and server roles, including the Spatial Temporal Big Data Store, which is used in supporting GeoEvent, GeoAnalytics, and Tracker, for example. We'll also discuss optional server roles that can be federated to ArcGIS Enterprise to support specific use cases. These could be the need to serve image services or real-time data using GeoEvent Server, just for example. Before we demo, let's take a high-level overview of the options that are available for deploying ArcGIS Enterprise. For our simple automated offerings, we have the ArcGIS Enterprise Builder. This is perfect for that single machine deployment on-premise. Next, for the cloud, we have our ArcGIS Enterprise Cloud Builders for both AWS and Azure. These deployments have the option to either deploy a single machine or multiple machine enterprise deployment. They also provide deployments for adding server roles to the base enterprise, such as hosting image services, notebooks, and more. You can find out more information on enterprise.arcgis.com. We'll be demoing these deployments later in the presentation. Next, we have our more advanced automation tools. These include Chef and PowerShell that allow users to fully customize their deployments. These are for the more advanced GIS programmer and professional. For enterprise deployment automation, we have a handy matrix that provides detail of each automation deployment tool and the level of support characteristics. This can help guide you to select the best one for your needs. From here, I'm going to turn it over to Mark, who's going to demo some simple automated deployment options.
Thanks, Derek, for that overview. Now, let's review in more detail the simple automation techniques that are available to you today. We will first demo the ArcGIS Enterprise Builder, then demo two cloud deployments, one using the ArcGIS Enterprise Cloud Builder for AWS, and the other using the ArcGIS Enterprise Cloud Builder for Azure. The ArcGIS Enterprise Builder is perfect for installing on a single machine. You can also upgrade previous deployments that were deployed with the Enterprise Builder. Just make sure you have your portal and server licenses available when using the Builder. Let's see the Builder in action. You can find additional information about the ArcGIS Enterprise Builder by visiting the ArcGIS Enterprise and selecting the Installation and Deployment tab. Scrolling down, we will find the ArcGIS Enterprise Builder. Click Learn More. Here you will find information about how to download the Builder and more. Also, to find more information about how to download your ArcGIS licenses from my.esri.com, you can watch our video hosted in YouTube. Simply open a search and search YouTube Licensing ArcGIS Enterprise and select the licensing video. This is a good reference when working with the MyEsri site. For this demo, I have deployed a virtual machine and have already downloaded the ArcGIS Enterprise Builder. I've also copied both the ArcGIS portal and server licenses to a location on my server. Before we launch the ArcGIS Enterprise Builder, I want to make sure the Internet Explorer Enhanced Security configurations are turned off. You can access this setting in the Server Manager console. From the console, select Local Server, and then find the Internet Explorer Enhanced Security configuration. It is on by default. We simply want to turn this off and select OK. With this setting now off, we just need to reset the security configuration in the Internet Explorer web browser. Simply open the web browser and for our deployment purposes, we just want to select Don't Use Recommended Settings and uncheck Do Not Track Requests and select OK. Next, let's select the Internet options, the Advanced tab, and Reset. Now we are ready to run the ArcGIS Enterprise Builder. So I will navigate to where I downloaded the Enterprise Builder. Right-click and we'll go ahead and mount this disk. And simply double-click on the Builder to execute. Now we are ready to get started. Simply click Next, accept the license agreement, and we will keep the default destination folder. I will keep the default user ArcGIS and provide a Windows Security compliant password. Here we can either keep the default web adapter names or change them if we want to. I will keep the default web adapter names. Now we need to provide our authorization file for ArcGIS Server. Now I am ready to install. I would also like to note that just for the sake of time, the installation has been sped up. For example, ArcGIS Enterprise Builder generally takes about an hour, but we sped it up here to save some time. Clicking Install will install Portal for ArcGIS, ArcGIS Server, ArcGIS Data Store, Portal Web Styles, and the web adapters for both Portal and Server. Once the installation is complete, we will need to continue with the configuration wizard. The ArcGIS Enterprise Builder has finished installing our software. Next, we need to exit this wizard to start the configuration of our ArcGIS Enterprise. Simply click Advanced and proceed to localhost. Before providing the portal license, we need to enable HTTPS on our server. Since I did not have IIS configured before I ran the builder, I let the builder install and configure IIS for me. Now we need to enable HTTPS, and while we are enabling it, we will also bind a domain certificate to port 443. So if we go to IIS Manager, and we can expand our server here, go to Sites, Default Websites. If we look at our bindings, you can see that 443 is not enabled. We can either choose to do a self-signed certificate or obtain a domain certificate. We made this easy for you to do. If you visit Portal for ArcGIS and hit the Administrator tab, we have a section called Create a Domain Certificate. We provide the PowerShell script that will create a domain certificate for you. We just have to copy this script, run PowerShell as administrator, and we can go ahead and create our PowerShell script. I simply pasted the code from the online documentation into this new PowerShell script. I'll now save this PowerShell script as certificate. Hit save. Simply going to the directory of where I just saved that PowerShell script. And now I can run the command. I now have a certificate generated for my server. And I accepted all of the default parameters within the script. You can find the default password within the script itself. In this case, it's called certificate. Now if we open up IIS Manager again, let's navigate to Server Certificates. Here you can see that the certificate has already been imported into my manager. Now we can navigate back to the default website, click Bindings, and as you can see, it has been attached to port 443. Now we can finish the ArcGIS Enterprise configuration. We choose our portal license file, choose Next, create the initial site admin account for our portal. This is the initial site admin user you will use once your portal is available, and the creator license type. Add additional information. We will keep the defaults for the content directories. We will now let the wizard finish the configuration. As the wizard completes each component, you will either see a green check mark or a red X. If a red X occurs, you will need to do some investigating, and you may need to adjust some of your parameters. The ArcGIS Enterprise Configuration Wizard has now successfully completed. We have provided the URLs for the portal and server sites. Simply click on the link for our portal environment, and we can sign in with the initial admin account we created with the builder. And now our portal is ready to use. For our next two deployments, we will use the ArcGIS Enterprise Cloud Builder for AWS and the ArcGIS Enterprise Cloud Builder for Azure. Both of these builders provide a straightforward approach to deploying an ArcGIS Enterprise in the cloud environment. Each builder offers deploying a single machine or multi-machine ArcGIS Enterprise deployment. They each also provide deploying and configuring additional ArcGIS server roles to your environment. If you choose the builders to deploy, you also have the option to upgrade with the builder in the future. We have found it helpful to review some common terminology as it relates to cloud deployments. In both environments, the enterprise is deployed in a virtual network. In AWS, this is represented by the VPC, and in Azure, it's called a VNet. Also, servers are deployed within virtual networks. A server in AWS is referred to as an EC2 instance, and a VM in Microsoft Azure. If you have a multi-machine ArcGIS server site deployed in the cloud, the machines are controlled by an autoscaler group in AWS or an availability set in Microsoft Azure. Also, check out the variety of storage options in each cloud environment. You must review the requirements of ArcGIS prior to selecting a storage option. Not all cloud storage options are supported. Let's review the ArcGIS Enterprise Builder for AWS. To deploy using the AWS Cloud Builder, you must update the DNS records to an elastic IP address. This will be the URL used for your deployments. You also must have your portal and ArcGIS server licenses ready. The AWS key pair is required when remotely accessing the deployed EC2 instance from your local machine. You must also subscribe to the ArcGIS images in the AWS Marketplace. The AWS Cloud Builder supports both Windows and Linux deployments. Make sure you have subscribed to the correct version and operating system you are trying to deploy. We will be demoing the ArcGIS Enterprise Cloud Builder for AWS. We will use the builder to deploy a single machine ArcGIS Enterprise environment. We will need to select the AWS region to deploy and either choose an existing VPC or create a new one with the builder. The builder will then use Esri's AWS image that we subscribe to in our AWS account to deploy an EC2 instance. If this is your first time using the builder, you will notice a new S3 bucket that has been created. This bucket is created by the builder and contains a JSON deploy file that will be located in the deployments folder, and the resources folder contains the ArcGIS license files and SSL certificates. The AWS Enterprise Builder will prompt you for these files and upload them for you into this bucket. I will now deploy a single machine deployment in AWS using the Cloud Builder. You can find more information about how to download the Cloud Builder by visiting the ArcGIS Enterprise in the cloud and selecting the AWS tab. Here you will find information about the Cloud Builder for Amazon. So I have already downloaded the Cloud Builder for AWS, so let's execute the program. First, I'm going to be prompted to sign in to my AWS account. The identity being used to log into AWS must have the proper permissions to deploy environments in Amazon. We can either provide an access key, ID, and the secret, or if we so choose, we can choose our profile that has been pre-configured on our machine. In this case, I'm going to use my profile, AWS3, and sign in. We currently have no deployments that use the AWS Cloud Builder in this account. Let's add a new deployment. Here we can choose either an ArcGIS Enterprise deployment or a standalone ArcGIS server. We're going to choose the default ArcGIS Enterprise and click Next. We can now specify the number of machines to deploy in our ArcGIS Enterprise deployment. We will deploy a single machine. We can also choose to deploy additional ArcGIS server roles from a generic ArcGIS server site, geoanalytics, notebook server, and so on. We also can add a spatial temporal data store at this time. However, we will just choose the single machine for this demo. Next, we'll go ahead and choose the region that we want to deploy in AWS. In this case, I'll select US West. Also, I have the option of choosing a Windows or an Ubuntu deployment. Let's deploy an Ubuntu machine. Next, we'll enter the name of our deployment. This name will be used in the CloudFormation stack name and the name of the EC2 instance being launched. Next, we need to either select an existing VPC or create a new one. Let's let the builder create a new VPC for us. We can enter the name of this VPC, and we'll keep the defaults for the IP addresses in each range, and click Create. With the VPC now created, next we need to enter our key pair. If one does not exist, we can also create one from the wizard. However, I have this key pair that I have already created in my account. We will choose that one. Next, we need to provide our SSL certificate for our site. We can either upload one directly with the builder or choose one that we have previously uploaded. Here I'm going to use our wildcard certificate that I have already loaded into the environment. Provide my password. Also, I need to select the IP address that I'm going to use for my site and provide my site domain name. And validate. You just need to make sure that your DNS has been updated with your site domain name to the IP address shown above. Next, we'll create the initial site admin account. Next. Now we need to choose the instance type we would like our machine to be running on. We will choose an M5 2x large, and we'll keep the default drive size. Next, we need to choose our license files. If this is the first time running the Cloud Builder, you'll need to upload these to the environment. However, I have already uploaded these and will choose the license files accordingly. Next, I need to choose what type of configuration store. If we hover over the icon here, we can see that we need to choose a store for the portal content directory and the server configuration store. We can either choose a cloud store or a file system. Since this is a single machine deployment, I'm going to choose file system and choose next. Finally, I can review the summary of the resources in my deployment, the general parameters. I can even look at my AWS credentials, the network parameters that include the VPC information, and the ArcGIS Enterprise environment parameters. If I am satisfied with all of these parameters, I simply click Create. Again, the ArcGIS Enterprise Cloud Builder for AWS may take a few hours to complete, but we have sped it up here to save time. After choosing Create, we can also track the progress of the Cloud Builder in the AWS console. By signing into your AWS account, you can navigate to the CloudFormation Stack dashboard. And here I'll click Refresh. As you can see, this was the VPC that we created through the Cloud Builder. It is now creating our base enterprise stack. You can also review the files that have been uploaded using the Cloud Builder. Simply navigating to the S3 bucket dashboard, you'll see a new bucket if this was the first time that you deployed using the Cloud Builder. Clicking on the bucket name, you can see all of the resources that were used in the deployment. If we open up the resource, we can see that this is where the SSL certificate has been placed and also our licenses that were used within this deployment. Also, we can look at the Elastic IP that will be used in this deployment. In the dashboard, I like to add a tag called URL to each one of the Elastic IP addresses that we use. I just tag it with the URL of the IP address associated with each deployment. We can also watch the instances being created as the Cloud Builder executes. Here we can see the EC2 instance being created. Now the Cloud Builder will be installing and configuring ArcGIS Enterprise. We just need to wait for it to finish. All right, the Cloud Builder has completed deploying ArcGIS Enterprise in AWS. The outputs are the portal URL and the server URL. Since it is finished, we'll simply click Close. We can now see our deployment on the main dashboard of the Cloud Builder. We simply expand the deployment and see all of the information about our environment, the create date, the version. We can even download the summary. To navigate to the environment, we can simply click on the link next to type. This will bring us to our ArcGIS Enterprise deployment. Now, let's review the ArcGIS Enterprise Builder for Azure. To deploy in Microsoft Azure, you must have your portal and ArcGIS server licenses ready. You also should have your SSL certificate ready. However, the Azure Cloud Builder does allow you to use a self-signed certificate. The self-signed certificate should only be used for development or testing environments. As in AWS, you must also enable programmatic deployments of ArcGIS images from the Microsoft Azure Marketplace. Please be aware that at the 10.8 release, the Microsoft Azure Cloud Builder has reconfigured the cloud architecture for ArcGIS deployments. The new architecture is referred to as version 2 or V2. If you use the Cloud Builder prior to 10.8, those are referred to as version 1 or V1. You can still manage, configure, and upgrade the V1 deployments with the 10.8 release of the Microsoft Azure Cloud Builder. This reference architecture shown here is for a V2 single-tier base deployment. Notice we are now leveraging the Azure Application Gateway as our single point of entry. I will now deploy a V2 single-tier base deployment using the new 10.8 Microsoft Azure Cloud Builder. You can find additional information about the Azure Cloud Builder by visiting the ArcGIS Enterprise in the cloud and selecting the Azure tab. Here you'll find more information about the Azure Cloud Builder, including how to download it. I have already downloaded and installed the Microsoft Azure Cloud Builder. Let's launch the Cloud Builder and sign into my account. The user signing into Azure must have the proper permissions to deploy environments in Microsoft Azure. As you can see, my account is associated with 2 Azure subscriptions. I will select the GeoXC subscription to deploy this Tenate environment. We currently have no deployments that used the Azure Cloud Builder in this account, so let's deploy a new site. The Builder gives you the option to either deploy an ArcGIS Enterprise environment or a server role that is listed. We will continue with the default selection to deploy an ArcGIS Enterprise environment. Here we have the option to deploy an existing resource group, or the Builder allows us to create a new resource group. We will create a new resource group for this demo, and I will select the East US region and hit close. We will then select the Esri image from the marketplace, the ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8. We'll also be deploying this into the East US region. Here we have the option to have a single tier deployment, or we can also add a secondary machine to our deployment. We can also add a prefix to all the Azure resources. This will be displayed in the Azure dashboard. Here we'll use the prefix UC and hit next. Now we need to either select an existing virtual network. However, since we deployed a new resource group, we'll need to create a virtual network. Check the availability, and we'll keep the default values and hit close. Here we need to select the created application gateway. Next, we need to assign a domain name that be associated with the new IP address being requested. And click Next. For our SSL certificate, we can either use a self-signed certificate or import our existing certificate. Since I updated the DNS to the domain name, I can enter our domain name alias. This is the URL that will be used to access our environment. I can now upload my PFX file and provide my password. Now I need to provide a machine administrator. This will be used to RDP into the machine, and I can also choose the size of the machine being deployed. I will keep the default. I can also set the time zone here. We will keep the default UTC. And again, for the name of our ArcGIS Enterprise deployment will be called WebGIS-Pri for primary, and we'll give this a prefix here. Now, if we want to enable remote desktop access, this will actually launch another jump box into our environment. Since we were unable to RDP into this, our ArcGIS Enterprise machine, due to the application gateway to access from our local machine. And here we have the option to include the tile cache data store or a spatial temporal data store. We will keep the default of relational. Now we need to supply our portal and server licenses. And provide the initial site administrator user. And also provide the username that will run the ArcGIS services on the Windows machine. Just remember we need to provide a password that passes the Windows security parameters. Now we'll add a storage account. And we'll keep it within our resource group that we just created. We also have the option to enable monitoring using the Azure monitoring logs, and also use additional cloud storage for our environment. We will keep the defaults and continue on. Now I can review all of the parameters that I have entered into the builder to make sure everything is correct. We can even generate a cost estimate of our environment. Depending on your subscription, you can get different cost estimates by the type of account that you have. We can look at a monthly cost, a daily cost, and even an hourly cost. The next thing we do is click Finish and let the builder complete our deployment. Also, the ArcGIS Enterprise Cloud Builder for Azure generally takes a few hours, but we have sped it up again to save time. While the builder is deploying, we can track the deployment progress by signing into our Microsoft Azure dashboard. Here I have a filter for Cloud Builder. I just hit refresh. As you can see, there's our Cloud Builder resource group that we created with the builder. We can dive deeper into the resource group and view other items as they become available. All right, the Cloud Builder has completed deploying ArcGIS Enterprise into our Azure subscription. We can either click here to browse to the site or simply hit close. The ArcGIS Enterprise Cloud Builder for Microsoft Azure dashboard displays our recently deployed site. We can expand the site to see more details about the environment. For example, the deployed date and time, the version, and the role that we deployed. We also have links to our environment. Let's click on our portal. And signing in with the initial admin account that we created in the builder. As you can see, our ArcGIS Enterprise deployment has been completed.
Thanks, Mark. In summary, we've covered many topics, including best practices of architecting your ArcGIS Enterprise deployments and guidance in how to design your deployments. The different options for deploying your ArcGIS Enterprise deployments, including ArcGIS Enterprise Builder, ArcGIS Enterprise Cloud Builder for Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure, as well as using scripting with Chef or PowerShell. We've also reviewed not just how the automation tools work, but specific characteristics of each tool and what is supported with each tool. Thanks for attending this session. We hope you found this presentation helpful and in understanding deployment tools available and how they work. We'll now start the question and answer portion of the presentation.